seen me speak before, or this is your first time? If you've seen me speak before, you maybe have not seen this story. I want to just test it out, see what you think. And see what you think might be effective about it, if at all effective. Now raise your hand again if you've ever been a Toastmaster. All right, raise your hand if you've ever competed in Toastmasters. I won at the club level, won at the area level. You have to win the division, the district, the region, the world championships. After I won at the area level, I'm going to the division. It's held in Baltimore City at the Red Cross building. I get into the Red Cross building. I'm going to the elevator. I'm going to go from the first floor to the third floor. The guy jumps on the elevator with me. He looked like he could be a minister or a preacher or something like that. And the moment he saw me, he said, "You're in the contest, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am." And without saying anything else, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a satchel, reached into it, pulled out a bottle of oil, unscrewed it, dipped his finger in it, and started walking towards me. And dabbed me in the forehead. And before I could say anything, he looked at me and he said, "I've just anointed you." I said, "Thanks." He said, "You don't understand, I'm a man of faith. What I just did is very important. I've just anointed you. You're going to be the one who makes it." I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what was going on. And I'm black, so I was like, am I ashy? Like, what's happening? And he just kept saying, "I've anointed you, I've anointed you, I've anointed you." Thankfully, the third floor came. And I hopped off. And I forgot all about it. And in the middle of the contest, I start speaking, it's my turn. And in the middle of my speech contest, my mind goes blank. Now, be honest. If my mind went blank today, I could easily say to you, "Where were we?" You can't do that in a speech contest. You gotta be darn near perfect. So I had no idea what to do. And I gave up. And I just started looking around the room. And then my eyes latched onto his. And at that exact moment, everything came running back. And I picked up where I left off and I finished the speech. Now here's the interesting part. The part of the speech where I lost my mind, I was actually supposed to pause. I wasn't supposed to pause that long, but I was supposed to pause. So I finished the speech, and the contest master gets up after the contest and he says, "And the winner of today's contest is Craig Valentine." And all the people came rushing the stage, and guess what the first thing they said was? "The reason you won? That pause." Oh my gosh, that pause was amazing. How do you do pauses like that? That's amazing. And all I could think of was, "Well, you know, I am anointed." Thank you. But he never claimed me. There are a lot of people who say, "I helped Craig Valentine win the world championship," who didn't. He actually helped me, and he never claimed me. In fact, I've never seen him again in my life. He just came into my life, lifted it, and left. Isn't it appropriate that we met in an elevator?
Yeah.
Because he met me at one level, left me at another.
Was he really there?
I was drinking before I saw him. I sometimes wonder that. I really do. Like, was he really there? But that's now what I call my elevator approach to leadership. It doesn't matter if you have a title. It doesn't matter if you're this or that. All you need to do is go into somebody's life, lift it before you leave. Good message? Yeah, the reason I like the story is because of this. It's not just the lines, it's the spaces and faces between the lines. That's where your story lives, in between the lines. All right, good. Let me get one more person up, and then I'm going to get into my model. One more person up. Come on up. Give her a hand. And it's Monica.
I just ate a French fry.
Oh, you're not alone. Okay, go ahead, Monica.
Okay. How many of you have grown children who got married?
Stop 1 second. We will never ever as speakers again say how many of you.
Okay.
I'll tell you about
Have you ever? I'm sorry, that was
when we
the
get to the delivery
okay.
section, we'll do it.
Okay.
Have you ever?
Have you ever had a grown child get married?
Many times.
Have you had? Okay, so 12.
Wait, stop. You got to jump on these spontaneous moments in your speech. When somebody says something as brilliant as that, You got to jump on that. So what could you say when he says many times?
Did it get better each time?
What can you say? What could you ask next? Because immediately what came to my mind was, what was the first question? What was the first question? It was, have you ever had a...
Oh, have you ever had a grown child get married?
Many times.
Have you ever had one get divorced? Many times. Okay, so now we're going back and forth. Okay, now we just... So it's just, you got to take chances if you're going to take charge when it comes to speaking. Jump on those spontaneous moments, don't avoid them. All right, one more time.
Okay, all right. Am I starting from the
We're starting from fresh, and this time don't say anything.
All right, no headphones now. Have you ever had a grown child get married? Yes. Okay. The hardest thing about having a grown child get married is that you become an in-law of someone that you may have never known before. I'm going to tell you a story about what happened to me about 12 years ago with mine.
Never tell somebody you don't tell them the story.
Okay.
Just tell them. Just dive into it.
Okay. About 12 years ago, my first child was preparing to get married, and there were some bumps along the road. Some things were said, bumps became obstacles, and the obstacles eventually became a brick wall. And I was told, don't contact me again. We're on a break. And I was
Stop. Is
devastated.
everybody confused?
Yeah, was it the
Who's
daughter?
talking?
Was
Who's
it the
talking?
son
Your
or the
daughter?
daughter-in-law?
My son.
Your son said don't contact him?
Don't contact me, we're on a break.
Who's on a break?
My son and myself.
Okay. Did you know that?
No.
I thought it was somebody saying I'm on a break from the person I'm about to marry. So we got to get it very clear. All right. So now we know. Your son is saying, Mom. That's all he
okay,
needs.
there we go.
That's all he needs.
Got it.
Mom.
He actually
You and
did
I
say to me,
are on a
he said it
break.
to my husband.
Okay. So just a little bit of clarity. Mom, you and I are on a break. All right.
Okay. He didn't actually say it to me, he said it to my husband.
That's a license to shorten the story.
Right. Mom, we're on a break, don't contact me. And I was devastated. And after years of depression, upset, anger, guilt, shame, confusion, trying to reach out and being slapped on the hand anytime I made any attempt to reconnect. I eventually just let go, learned a number of new skills, and I realized that I had to approach relationships from a whole new way. I always thought I was good at relationships, and I realized I don't know everything, and I have to listen to all sides, and I had to wait to be ready for him to reach back to me. Good news is, a few months ago, he reached back. So after 10 years.
10 years. 10 years. This is a perfect story for my model that we want to go over right now. You're going to be climbing the conflict. You're going to be escalating the conflict for 10 years. What did you get from her story in terms of her lesson? What did you get?
Patience.
Yeah, what?
You've got to learn something to gain something. Right. I thought you were going to say you have to learn something.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I like that too. But
You learned and you lost. Yeah. I learned, yeah.
we're going to come back to you when it comes to my model because it's very important. And you went through 10 years of this.
Yeah.
So the payoff has to be as big as the problem.
Right.
How do you feel now?
It changed, of course, if I'm a coach, and I became more relationship coaching.
Is he
I
married?
teach it. Yeah. Well, he's now separated, which is why he was able to.
So did you say, see, I was right the whole time? All right, okay. Good job, we'll get back. All right. So never to coach people based on the C's, but thank you very much for sharing that. And when you do share that story, it's going to be about dialogue again. It's going to be about me calling him and him saying this to me instead of saying he just slapped my hand.
Right.
I want to hear what he said. I want my heart to break the same way your heart broke. That's one of the secrets to storytelling. You need to hear it the same exact way we heard it when it happened to us, when we experienced it. So here's a reference story for my model. It's my signature story. And then we're going to go into the model, and then we're going to start coaching people and go into delivery and selling as well. All right, you may have heard this before. What do you think is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams?
Fear.
Fear. Good. Fear of what?
Failure.
Okay. What else?
The few.
Success.
The unknown.
Fear. Okay. In addition to fear, what's the number one thing that stands in the way of most people living their dreams?
Your wife?
Hard times.
Many times. Yes. A person. Okay. These are all good answers, and they're all wrong. They're not wrong. They're just not, in my opinion, the number one thing that stands in the way. The number one thing is not what you think. See, I used to work for an internet company, and I wanted to go full-time into professional speaking. That was my goal. That was my goal. Raise your hand if you have a goal, or raise your hand if you want to do anything in life. Me too! So I went to the vice president of this company, young guy, good-looking guy, looked like a young David Beckham. And I said, look, John, I'm going to be leaving because it's always been my dream to be a full-time professional speaker. He said, that's your dream, Craig? I said, yes, it is. He said, well, that's great. I really admire you for having one, but you can't leave. I said, hold on, what do you mean I can't leave? He said, well, Craig, we've been thinking about it, and we're going to raise your salary up to this. Salary means the same thing in Connecticut, right? So you see my dilemma. I said, John, this is not a financial decision. This is about my dream. In fact, I call this a dream decision. He said, okay, I understand, I really do. But how about if we raise your salary up to this? I said, this is not a financial decision, this is a dream decision. Do you know he raised it 4 times?
Wow.
I kid you not, he kept saying, we're going to raise your salary up to this. I said, this is not a financial decision, this is a dream decision. He said, okay, Craig, how about if we raise your salary to well above $100,000? I said, dreams are overrated. Come on, 6 figures back then?
Yeah.
That's good money today. I could fill up my gas tank for a week on that kind of stuff. I said, John, before I say yes to you, I got to go home and talk to my wife. So I went home to my wife and said, honey, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? What should I do? And my wife looked up at me with her big brown eyes and said, take the money, fool! You like my wife, don't you? But if you've been sitting beside my wife and me just a few moments later, on our old beat up black leather sofa, with the chocolate chip cookies baking in the background, you would have heard her say something that can absolutely change your life, and I know because it changed mine. She said, Craig, this is all you've ever wanted. Ever since we met, this is all you ever talked about. I don't care how much they try to compensate you, your dream is not for sale. That's deep, isn't it? You saw that? It's deep because most people think the number one thing that stands between them and their dreams is some kind of bad obstacle. That's not it. The number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams is not something bad, it's something good that we settle for. Good job, a good relationship, a good life. Did you realize that sometimes the enemy of the best is the good? So let me ask you something. When it comes to you speaking, when it comes to you and storytelling, are you too good to be great? Probably not, or you wouldn't have shown up. So I looked at my wife, I said, see girl, that's why I married you. My dream was not for sale, that's what you said, right? And I walked back in there the next day, and I looked that vice president in his eyes, and I was firm. And I looked him directly in his face, and I was bold. And I said to him, my wife said my dream is not for sale. And I left! And that very year, I spoke over 160 times in 44 states and 5 countries. And I'm happy to say I've been running my mouth ever since. But here's the key. There's nothing special about me. There's something very special about the advice my wife gave me. No matter how good you are, what you do, don't let that good get in the way of the best. And no matter where you are as a speaker right now, just remember the words of my wife. Your dream is not for sale. Your dream is not for sale. Stop right there. Tell a story, make a point, foundational phrase, fewer than 10 words. What's the foundational phrase for that story? Your dream is not for sale. You're going to remember it, you're going to repeat it. I went to Mysore, India, and gave that story on the Infosys campus. The next day, a newspaper was slid under my door in my hotel room. I picked it up, there's a big picture of me on the front cover. And the headline read, your dream is definitely not for sale. Remember, repeated, rehired. That story that I told in Mysore, India led to me getting booked in Tokyo. by the same organizer. So tell the story, make a point, foundation, phrase, food, and 10 words. Now let's go through the model, and let's focus on maybe 5 of the C's. I want you to look at this page right here, right next to the food. And I want you to look at the first C, or the second C, which is characters. Who are the characters in my story? And then when we coach people, we'll go over all 9 C's. But right now, for my story, 5 or 6. Who are the characters?
So you and
All right.
boss, your wife.
Let's go one by one. So who was the boss? What the boss look like?
There
Look
we
how
go.
fast she said. You still see him, right? You still see him?
Yeah.
All right. Patricia Fripp taught me something very important before she charged me. She said, Craig, people won't remember what you say as much as they'll remember what they see when you say it. So you have to make everything very visual. So I gave a hint to what my character looked like. Now, what did my wife look like? Be careful. Big brown eyes, yes. Exactly. Now, you can mentally fill in the rest. I'm sorry, I don't know why. you can mentally fill in. So here's my question. Why don't I give you the entire description?
Because you want to leave it up to our imagination.
Why?
Because we need to see from our lens.
So we
Yes,
invested.
because people buy into what they help create. And if I do everything for you, there's nothing left for you to do. I learned this lesson the hard way. I think I was up here, not close to here somewhere, maybe a long time ago, and I was doing a workshop, and there was a big burly guy who stood in the corner, who sat in the corner, like right over here. And I was telling a story about this swamp tour that we had gone on. And at the end of the story, I said to my audience, so what did the guide to the swamp tour look like? And this big burly guy who was sitting in the corner, he looked at me and he said, he had a ponytail. I said, well, he didn't have a ponytail. What makes you think he had a ponytail? The big burly guy stood up and said, because that's how I saw him. I said, you're absolutely right. He did have a ponytail. Like from a horse, yes. But guess who was right? He was right. Because I don't care how he sees him as long as he sees him. It's my job to give a hint. It's his job to fill in the rest. So don't give the complete description, just give a piece of it. All right? Now here's the real key to storytelling. Immediately, when you introduce your characters, you've got to throw them into a conflict. The earlier the conflict, the earlier you have your audience hooked. Too many speakers do what I call too much pre-ramble before they get to the story and then before they get to the conflict. Write this down. The conflict is the hook. Now, why is the conflict the hook?
Creates emotion.
Okay, creates emotion, but why else is it the hook?
The brain actually wants to understand how it gets resolved. Right?
Exactly. We're begging for a resolution, and maybe when you resolve it, it's a tool I can use in my own life. So conflict is the hook. Where did the conflict happen in my story? Where was the exact moment of conflict? Because if you don't know this about your own story, your story doesn't stand a chance.
You were going in to tell your boss that you wanted to leave.
Okay.
That's what he offered you the money.
Okay. So where was the exact moment of conflict? Was it when I went in there and told him I want to leave? When he offered me more money? But where was the exact conflict? Where did the Titanic hit the iceberg?
When you got loaned off your wife.
The moment he said, you can't leave. That's the moment of conflict. There was no conflict before that. The moment he said, you can't leave, that was the establishment of the conflict. So establish your conflict very early on. Now, most speakers do this. They establish the conflict and then they show you how they overcame it. You want to be a great storyteller? Don't just establish it, escalate it. Escalate it. The conflict has to get worse. The water had to rise on the Titanic. Think about it. If the water never rose on the Titanic, that would have been a terrible movie. So my question is, how do you make the water rise on the Titanic in your story? How did I do it in mine? The money. He kept giving me more and more and more. And the more he gave me, the more flattered, yet more frustrated I became. Until something had to give. And that's when we get to the next C, which is the cure C. Keep in mind, every one of these C's is a scene. So now we're at the cure scene. Two things happen in the cure scene. Number one, you you get a revelation, or a recipe, or a formula, or a toolkit, or a change in perspective, or something that's going to help you overcome the conflict, or at least transcend it. Second thing that happens in the cure scene is this. You have a guru. And the guru is the person, place, or thing that gives you the cure. Now, my only firm rule on gurus is this. It can be a person, place, or thing, but it should not be what? It should not be you. Don't be the guru of your own story. Why? Why do you think, Oscar?
Because then it's like you solve your own problems.
Exactly. Right. I knew the answer all along, Dorothy. Right? Don't be the, even she had a guru. Don't be the guru of your own story. You did not fall off the encyclopedia truck with all life's answers. So the key is the story is coming through you, not from you. The point is coming through you, not from you. Okay? So who was the guru in my story? My wife. There are a lot of people to this day trying to friend my wife on Facebook for motivation. Okay? Now, what was the cure that she gave me? It was a change in perspective. She said, I was letting the good get in the way of the best. Your dream is not for sale. She gave me conviction. She gave me hope. She gave me conviction. She gave me somebody on my side. She gave me a cure. Now, after the cure, here's a very important scene. And this is what we were working on before with Yvonne. Right. We have to show how it changed you. Write this down. If there's no change, there's no story. If there's no change in emotion, there's no story. Write this down also. If you take us through the problem, take us through the payoff. I was with a lady in Vegas. Hold on. I didn't sound right. Let me start the story a different way. I was speech coaching a lady in Vegas. And she got up and she had this, it was kind of like your story. But she lost her husband, she lost her kids, she lost her job, she lost everything. Bad for life, great for a story.
Right.
So we're building this story up, and then she tells us the cure. And then she gives us advice. What's she missing? Guru.
How did she change?
She's missing change.
Yeah.
So here's what I said to her in front of everybody. I said, let me ask you something. We just saw you go through all these struggles. If we take your advice, can we be as miserable as you? And she said, oh, I got it. I never showed that I got out of it. I said, exactly. You got to show the change. So what happened to me once I got my message from my wife? What happened to me?
You spoke it all those different, 160
160 times, 44 states, 5 countries, and what's the most important part?
You're
And
still
I'm
running
happy.
your mouth today.
And I'm happy to say I've been running my mouth ever since. No change in emotion, no story. Raise your hand if you ever saw When Harry Met Sally. All right. Do you remember these scenes in When Harry Met Sally? All right. We're not going to reenact that. I love it. She said, yes. I was just going to say, we're not going to reenact that scene. But here's what I want you to do on the count of 3. On the count of 3, I want you to say what the elderly lady turned to the waitress and said. We're going to say it together on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Give me some.
I'll have what she said. Now let me ask you a question. Did Sally ever talk to that elderly lady?
No.
So how was she influencing her?
Very much.
Through what was happening to her.
Right.
Exactly. So if somebody sees your change in the story, this is what I call the When Harry Met Sally method. When they see all the great things that are happening to you, what do you think they're going to say?
You can do it,
I
I can
have
do
what
it.
he's having. I want what he's having. Yes. Okay? So what I'm trying to tell you is this. The story sells your message. The story sells your point. And then the last thing we need to do is just give the carry-out message, which is what? Your foundational phrase, which is fewer than 10 words. So now, look at the cure. Write this down. What you get in the cure, you hand them out the door. In the cure, my wife said, Craig, your dream is not for sale. When I go to the carry-out message, what do? I say to you, your dream is not for sale. What I picked up in the cure, I hand you out the door. What you pick up in the cure, you hand them out the door. And those are the C's. And when people come up, we'll start working on other C's. But let me explain one more C. Raise your hand if you'd like to add humor to your speeches. Raise your hand high if you'd like to add humor to your speeches. Never add humor to a speech. Uncover humor within. There's a big difference. Never add humor, uncover humor. If you add humor, you got to go on a detour to get it. If you add humor, it might not be organic. But if you uncover humor, it's already in there. So where do you find it? Let me tell you exactly where you find it. Within your stories, more specifically within your characters, more specifically within your characters' dialogue, and even more specifically, between the lines of dialogue, in the spaces and faces between the lines. That's where you're going to find the humor. You want some proof? Watch this. Dreams are overrated. Funny line, dialogue. Take the money, fool. Funny line, dialogue. My wife said my dream is not for sale. Funny line, dialogue. Almost all the humor from that story came from what?
Dialogue.
Dialogue. And as you'll see later in another story, it's the spaces and faces between the lines.
You were very animated with all of your facial expressions.
Yeah.
Which helps the story.
That helps the story, right? So it's the look before and after the line that often makes the line. That's what makes it work. So when I bring somebody up now, I want you to, you don't have to tell, you have a choice. You can tell the story that you just worked on, or you can tell any story that you have. I'd actually prefer it to be a story that you might have and that you might already be telling. And let's just take it to that next level based on the model. All right, raise your hand, like, come on, give her a hand. All right, now let me ask one question. Are you here for validation or education? You're going to get both. But you're okay with education?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Some people come up and they just want to know that everything they're doing is all right. If you're okay with me,
Yeah, no, definitely.
okay. Y'all, you heard that, right? All right. So I'm going to let you go. I might stop you at any time.
Okay.
Here we go.
So I had this big garbage can that my 7-year-old and my 12-year-old loved. It was the kind that has a steering wheel in it and 4 wheels. And
Okay,
these-
stop. You said it was a van?
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm gonna let you start in a second. Like Kanye went. I'm gonna let you. So, one of the things at the very beginning, and I told you I'll cover the other C's as we coach people, is curiosity. What is curiosity? Why do I want to go on this journey with you in the first place? So we need to find a way for Tara to make us want to go on that journey in the first place, because otherwise I'm like, why is she talking to me about garbage cans? Right? So what did I do in my story at the very beginning to make you want to come with me? What did I do? In the story I just told, what did I do?
Anybody want to do anything with it?
Okay, good. I started tapping into your world. This is what I call tap, tease, and transport under Curie. She said, and what do you want to do with your life? Okay? It's what I call tap, tease, and transport. So I said this. What do you think is the #1 thing that stands between most people living their dreams? Now, if you're speaking to entrepreneurs, you might say, what do you think is the #1 obstacle to entrepreneurs getting more customers? What do you think is the #1 obstacle to building leads? Just make it relevant. And then when they answer, you can do this. That was wrong. No, it's not wrong. But the #1 thing is not what you think. That's the tease. So now I've tapped into their world with a question. I've teased them to want to know more. And then and only then do I transport them into my story. Tap, tease, and transport. That all goes under curiosity. Find ways to do that. There's another story I tell. There's another story I tell that goes like this at the very beginning. The greatest leadership principle I ever learned in my life, I learned from the President of the United States of America in the early 1990s when, get this, I shared a golf cart with him. Stop right there. Are you curious at all?
Yeah.
Okay, who are you curious about? What are you curious about? What questions do you have?
What were you doing?
What was I doing to be in that position with the President? What else?
Who was the
Who
president?
was the President? Was it the Vice President?
What did he say?
What did he say? Somebody even said, what did you shoot that day? You might even wonder what the greatest leadership principle was.
Yeah.
You want to know who it was?
Yeah.
Martin Sheen. All right, let's keep moving. You know, that story is almost over because I can't tell it because people don't even remember he was the president anymore. But it worked for many, many years. All right. So, how can she start with a question? What's a nice question or a way she can make us curious to get into it? What do you think?
It's rhetorical.
They can be rhetorical.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what you do.
Yeah. Have you ever been annoyed by a kid? I've been
Wait,
annoyed.
wait, stop. No, that's great.
Oh.
But you gotta let us get annoyed again.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the key. Do you ever wonder how long to let your audience pause? Like after you ask a question, do you ever wonder how long you should leave? Here's the answer. Answer the question yourself. So watch this. I'm gonna be the mind of the audience. You know, you stand up. I'm gonna be the mind of the audience, and I want you to be quiet after you ask your question. I want you to be quiet until I stop talking as the mind of the audience, and then you pick up.
Okay.
All right. So you ask your question first. I'm the mind of the audience. Here we go.
Have you ever been annoyed by a kid?
Oh gosh, yes. On the train today, the kid did not shut up. Oh my gosh.
I have many a time too, and unfortunately they were my own.
Now let's stop. Now, you see what I mean? You've got to give them time to digest it, to think about it. Now that's a yes or no question. If it's an open-ended question, you might need to give them more time. Because otherwise, we're doing what my good friend Darren LaCroix says this. He showed me this activity one time. What's your name?
Pat.
He said, Pat, tell me what was your greatest childhood memory? Well, that's great, Pat. So as soon as you start talking, I just interrupt you, right? Because we're not giving them time. Remember what Bill Gove said. Speaking is a dialogue, not a monologue. It's a dialogue, not a monologue. So you've got to be aware of what's going on in their minds. All right, so ask the question, pause just as long, look everybody over, and then continue. Make them curious.
Have you ever been annoyed by a kid? I have, and unfortunately, they were my own kids. It seemed to me that every time I would ask them to do something, nothing would happen.
Good job.
Yeah.
Instead of saying every time I would, remember I talked about pre-ramble? Remember I talked about pre-ramble? We gotta get to conflict now. But if she is going to go that way, I would suggest doing it like this. Every time I say, Johnny, will you do this? Nothing. Emma, will you do that? Nothing. Dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. Okay? And then we get into this conflict. Yeah.
Okay, go to the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Have you ever been in Groundhog Day? No. Let's see. Have you ever been annoyed by a kid? Yes. I have. Unfortunately, they're my own kids. When I seem to ask, nothing would happen. Hey Tim, can you put that laundry in the hamper? Nothing. Serena, did you put your markers away? Nothing. But there was one thing that they were very good about making sure that they went into a certain spot. And this was always in the van. And unfortunately, the thing that they were good about putting into the spot was garbage. They would, whatever they were eating, the wrapper would just drop on the floor. And I would say, hey, Tim, can you just take the garbage out with you when you get out? Nothing. Serena, would you mind picking up that wrapper and putting it into the little bin? Nothing. And of course, each of my requests would get a little stronger the next time. Tim, did you put that away? Serena, your wrapper is on the floor. And then finally, one day, as we were driving up to the school, where they had this monitor that would open the door, I turned to them and I said, guys, I get so embarrassed when they open the door and there is all that garbage on the floor. And do you know what they did? They dropped to the floor, hands and knees, and scrambled around to pick up the papers that they had. And in that moment, I was just gonna say,
You're in the story. Is she in the
I was
story?
just thinking it was gonna be me.
Is she emotionally in the story? Is she emotionally in
And
the
at
story?
that moment,
You know why?
at that moment, my
Yes.
father's voice came into my head, and he said, Tara, don't tell somebody to do something BS. He never said
He
that
could have said it. But let me ask you a question. She was emotionally in the story, so weren't you emotionally in the story?
Yeah.
Because you can never bring somebody in a story that you're not emotionally in. So you got to get there first. And that's what happened when you went to dialogue. When you were retelling it, write this down. Never retell it.
You're gonna make me do this.
When you were retelling it, it wasn't even emotional to you. When you started reliving it, it was, you were seeing you back in that van, talking to them. You were feeling that
Oh,
moment.
yeah.
And then I was feeling that moment. Good? Good. I'm telling you right now that conversations and dialogue, that's the heart of the story. Think about every story that I told today that had a laugh or had a or had that. It came from dialogue. Even my son, how old is the horse? That's dialogue. Okay? And now, sometimes you have to shorten the story, let's be honest. Write this down. Condense to connect. Condense to connect. I'm just taking you behind the curtain right now. Condense to connect. Because the reality of my story happened over 4 days. But what I did was I put 4 days into one conversation. Why? Because it's still true. Everything that happened is still true, but it's just like the movies, where they take the boring parts out. It wouldn't have been the same story if I came back the next day and said, and he's going to give me more money. Give me more. One person I works for is Les Brown with his radio station story. But the rest of them, yeah. So I put it all into one. But condense to connect and keep the essential truth of the story. The other thing you can condense are characters. During that time in my life, do you think there was anybody else who had anything to say to me in terms of advice? People I worked with, people who were about to work for me, all kinds of people. And you know what I did? I put them all into one character represented by my wife. Do you think my wife had anything else to say to me during that whole process? Yes, but what I condensed was everything she said into one phrase. Your dream is not for sale, which was the thing that hit me the hardest. So condense the number of people, condense time, and even condense events if you need to. Condense to connect. All right, good. So let me get one more person. Actually, before we get one more person up, let's go into delivery. Then we'll get one more person up. So you have some ideas on how to craft your message. We'll get more in a moment. But let's look at how to deliver it. I need a volunteer, and there might be a prize in it for you. Have you seen me speak before?
No.
Come on up. You've been great. You've been great all day in that corner. Hold it down that corner, buddy. Appreciate you. All right. Now, Thomas. Okay. I want you to pretend this is your audience, and I want you to find out how many of them have ever been to Baltimore. So what would you say? How would you say that? It's your audience. How many of them have ever been to Baltimore? Find it out.
Have you ever been to Baltimore? Raise your hand.
Good. Now have a seat. Have a seat for a second. I'll bring you back in a second. I need another volunteer who's never seen me speak. Come on up. Great job, by the way, Thomas. You're brand new, right?
Yes.
Brand new. Welcome to NSA.
Thank you.
You win. Like I had a door there or something. All right, Brandon. I want you to ask the same thing. Like, how many of them have ever been to Baltimore? What would you ask? How would you do it?
Who here has ever been to Baltimore?
Good. Stop you before you go into your own keynote speech. Very good, right? Very wrong. Very wrong. So that's, no, it wasn't wrong. But how would you like a tool you can use to make a deeper connection with your audience than you've ever felt before? If so, just say yes.
Yes.
All right, and this is a slight edge principle, which means it's a slight change in the way you do things, but if you do it throughout your entire speech and story, what a difference for how they'll feel your message. Not just hear it, but really feel your message. So Brandon, when your audience members leave your speech, hopefully at the end, you want them to leave thinking, whoa, I really felt like I was part of a group. Or do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, it really felt like Brandon was speaking directly to me?
Second one.
What do you want, A or B?
B.
How many people did Brandon just speak to?
Oh.
Everybody. How many people should he speak to?
1.
One. That's why you got it right. 1. So how can Brandon rephrase his question to make it sound and feel grammatically like he's speaking to 1 rather than 30? Have you been to Baltimore? Can you imagine? Should you, would you, could you? Singular grammatically. Write this down. It will change your public speaking. Won't it?
It will.
It will change your public
Because it
speaking life.
changed, I have to tell you, I saw Craig, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it was. And this one tip changed the way I presented from that point on.
And here's the tip. Speak to 1, but look to all. Speak to 1. You already know all this, don't you? Speak to 1, but look to all. There are far too many speakers speaking to far too many people far too often. And you'll hear them, they'll say things like, ladies and gentlemen, and friends, and folks, and boys and girls, and societal members, and members of the committee, and fellow Toastmasters, and NSA. You might as well be saying friends, Romans, come stop. Speak to 1. You ever heard a speaker say, now some of you might be thinking. Guess what? There's no some of you. Now you might be thinking. You ever heard a speaker say, now many of you probably came to the conclusion. Guess what? There is no many of you. Now in case you've come to the conclusion, speak to 1. Now I have what I call the hallway test. And this is what it means. If you can say it, if you can walk by one person in the hallway and say it to him or her, you can take it up on stage. So Brandon and I are going to walk by each other in the hallway, and let's just see how this works. How many of you have ever been to Baltimore? Unless he's civil and has 8 personalities, we got a problem. Come on then. However, if I say to him, have you ever been to Baltimore?
Yes.
Now we can connect. If you stop walking, we can connect. So you have the lesson?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and rephrase your question.
Have you ever been to Baltimore?
Yes.
All right, good. Now, don't forget the look to all part.
Okay.
It can't be, you ever been to Baltimore? How about you? You been to Baltimore? You look very Baltimoreish. It takes you a long time to get to your audience. All right, so one more time, just make sure as you say it, look everybody over. And you know what? This is the thing about speaking. Really really want to know the answer. When you ask your audience a question, you should really be looking at them as if you want to know what's in their mind. All right, go ahead.
Have you ever been to Baltimore?
No.
Don't look at me, I'm in there.
He lives there.
Just keep looking at them.
Okay.
Look a little bit slower because if you go like that, it's like crazy. You ever been to Baltimore? Or you can do like Tom did. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Baltimore. Either way, but you want to look them over.
Okay.
All right, great.
Raise your hand if you've ever been to Baltimore.
Give him a hand. That's good. I'm telling you right now, small change makes a huge difference. I gave the commencement ceremony, 10 of them actually, to the University of Phoenix graduation ceremonies. 4,000 people. I think we were in Minnesota in the orchestra hall. I've done them all over the country. But afterwards, I got a Facebook message from somebody who said, I was in your audience, I was not one of the graduates. I know there were thousands of people there, but it felt like you were speaking directly to me.
Oh.
Not me. It's this tool. Speak to 1, look to all. Speak to 1, look to all. All right. The other thing I'll say about delivery is this. It is about the spaces and faces between the lines. Give you an example. See what I do in between the lines here in this story. Normally I wouldn't tell you I'm telling you a story, but this is a storytelling workshop. So, all right. Here's something you might not have noticed about me. Even when I came here last year, you might not have noticed about me. But I'm black. Well, hold on, let me tell you how I found this out. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. More important question. Raise your hand if you're from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. All right, good, let's talk about it. Actually, I love Lancaster. It's one of my favorite towns. But this is just where this happened to me. 19 years ago, I was one of the lead trainers for one of the biggest training firms in the United States. And anytime I would have more than 25 people in my workshop, they would provide me with an assistant. And most of the time, I never met the person before. So here I am, early in the morning in the hotel in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm in the hallway, I see a table. On the other side of the table, I see a lady. And I'm thinking, oh wow, this must be my assistant for the day. So I walked up, I said, hi, I'm Craig Valentine, I'm the trainer today. I kid you not, this is exactly what she did. She said, oh, it's very nice. She said, you're the trainer? I said, yes. She said, oh. They're going to be shocked. Now be honest, you ever know the answer, but you want to ask the question anyway. So I said, why? Why are they going to be shocked? She said, because you don't look like the regular trainer. I said, I know, I'm tall. She said, She said, I don't know how to tell you this. But you're black. I said, what? I said, I tell you what, 5 minutes after I start my workshop, I want you to duck your head in here and see how shocked they look. She ducks her head in there 5 minutes after I start my workshop. At 9 o'clock.